For today's classwork assignment, you do not have to watch me work out every single problem. Feel free to fast forward to the ones that you missed to see the explanation for just those. Okay, so here we go with number 7. So I notice we're starting with a subtraction symbol, and we need to remember that we add the opposite. So I'm going to drop down my negative 8 and 3/8. Subtraction will change to addition, and the opposite of positive 10 and 1/6 is negative 10 and 1/6. Before I add these, I need to make sure that I have a common denominator. So I notice 8 and 6 are my denominators, and 24 will be the LCM. So I'm going to set it up over here vertically, 8 and 3/8, and negative 10 and 1/6. And we are going to find our equivalent fractions with 24 as our denominator. 8 times 3 makes 24. 3 times 3 makes 9. 6 times 4 makes 24. 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, so we're going to add these together. I owe 8 and 9/24. I owe 10 and 4/24. So we're going to add them to see how much we owe all together. 9 plus 4 is 13. The denominator is 24. 10 plus 8 is 18. So I owe 18 and 13/24. Number 9. 5.5 minus 8.1. So instead of subtracting, we are going to add the opposite. So drop down your 5.5, change subtraction to addition, and the opposite of 8.1 is negative 8.1. So you can think of these as dollars if you want. I have $5.50. I could show a 0 there if I want. I owe $8.10. So I owe more than I have. So I need to subtract these two to figure out what do I still owe. So I'm going to set it up vertically. 8.1 minus 5.5. When I subtract, drop down the decimal point. Again, I said I owe more than I have, which means my answer is a negative 2.6. Number 11. Copying the problem here. Okay, so again, anytime we subtract, we're actually going to add the opposite. I always start by circling my subtraction symbol, dropping down our first number. Subtraction changes to addition. The opposite of a negative is a positive, and then we're left just with adding 2 positive decimals. So we need to keep in mind that when we add decimals, the most important thing is those decimal points line up. Okay, so you can put a 0 here as a placeholder if you would like. Then we add 3 plus 0, 7 plus 3 is 16, carry the 1, 6 plus 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9, drop in our decimal point, and 8 plus 6 makes 14. And again, we were just adding 2 positive numbers, so 14 and 963 thousandths would be our final answer. Number 13. Okay, 13, we're finding the distance between 2 given values. Here they are, 5 and 3/4. So anytime we want to find the distance between 2 numbers, we have to subtract them. Okay, and anytime we subtract, we place the larger number first. Well, negative 2.5 is closer to 0, which makes it bigger than negative 5 and 3/4. So we would set up the problem negative 2.5 minus, this was a negative, negative 5 and 3/4. So we're subtracting and here's our negative sign. I just put these in parentheses to separate those two. Okay, so then we go back to the idea, anytime we subtract, we actually add the opposite. So drop in the -2.5. Here's our subtraction sign, that changes to addition. And the opposite of -5 3/4 is +5 3/4. Okay, so this is like I owe you 2.5. I have 5 3/4. So we need to subtract them to figure out what I still have. So I'm gonna set it up vertically for subtracting mixed numbers. And I need to make sure I have a common denominator first. Well, here are my denominators, 4 and 2. 4 just seems like the easiest denominator. 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2. 3/4 can stay the same because it already has that denominator of 4. So then I can subtract 3/4 minus 2/4 and I get 1/4. 5 minus 2 is 3. And then if I go back over here, again, I'm going to remember that I have more than I owe, which means this is a positive. I still have 3 1/4. Okay, a couple more. Number 15, do that next. 15 is another one, finding the distance. So the two numbers are -7 and -3 2/3. So again, I have to remember that we're gonna subtract to find the distance. We're gonna place the larger number first. Well, -3.5 is closer to 0. That makes it bigger than -7, so I'm gonna show that first in my subtraction. Here's my subtraction symbol, here's my negative symbol for -7. Parentheses will just be used to separate the subtraction and the negative sign. Okay, same idea. Instead of subtracting, we're gonna add the opposite. So -3 2/3. Subtraction changes to addition, and my -7 becomes +7. I have 7, I owe 3 2/3. We're gonna subtract those to figure out what I still have. So 7 minus 3 2/3. I have nothing to subtract from here, so instead of a 7, I'm gonna make this a 6 3/3 because that's equivalent to 7. Now I can subtract. So 3/3 minus 2/3 is 1/3, and 6 minus 3 is 3. And I had more than I owed, which makes it a positive. Okay, we have 2 more to do. I need to turn the page for the last 2. Number 17. Okay, number 17 is a word problem, so let's look and see, read it together to figure out what it's asking. The figure shows the depth of a submarine. Find the vertical distance, there's the key word, traveled by the submarine. So that's part A, okay? So the two numbers we need to find the distance between are -314 9/10 of a foot and -725 6/10 of a foot, okay? So again, to find the distance, we subtract, here's my subtraction symbol, I'm gonna put this in parentheses, the two numbers, and I already have the larger number first. This is closer to 0, okay? So instead of subtracting, I'm gonna add the opposite. Subtraction changes to addition. Opposite of a negative is a positive. I have this, I owe this, so I'm gonna subtract those to figure out what I still have. We are gonna line up, oops, I got an extra decimal point in there. We are gonna line up our decimal points. And when I subtract these, I can borrow, okay? And so the distance between them is 410 and 7/10 feet. Okay. Let's see. Then part B asks us to find the mean hourly vertical distance traveled by the submarine. Well, this is the total distance traveled, 410.7 or 7/10 if we want to say it right. And if we look closely at the figure, it says that it was a 3-hour time change. It said 3 hours ago was the first position. So if we want the mean hourly change, we simply need to take this and divide it by 3. I'm gonna hop up my decimal point. 3 goes into 4 once. At 3, subtract, I get 1. Bring down. 3 goes into 11 3 times. At 9, subtract, I get 2. Bring down. 3 goes into, oh, that's a bad 0. 3 goes into 20 6 times. Yes, Mrs. Marion can multiply. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract, I get 2. Bring down. Ooh, lucky yes, it goes in evenly. 3 goes into 27 9 times evenly. Okay, so it traveled 136.9 feet per hour. Okay, last one we're going to do together is number 19, which is a multi-step problem. Let me get it copied here for us. And the last one, minus negative 2 and 41/100. Okay, so before I even start thinking about adding or subtracting, I want to make sure we deal with this. Because anytime we subtract, when negatives are involved, we are adding the opposite. So let's get rid of that right away. I'm going to recopy the first part of the problem. Subtraction, circle that, changes to addition. And the opposite of negative 2 and 41/100 is positive. So you can tackle this left to right if you want. That works totally fine. But in class, we actually talked about whole numbers or integers, combining everything that we have and then everything that we owe. So I noticed we have 2 positive rational numbers. So I'm going to combine those first to figure out what's the total I have, and then I can just take out or subtract the negative 7.8. So I'm going to add these together off to the side. 6.59, 2.41, add them up. 9 plus 1 is 10, carry the 1. 5 and 5 makes 10, carry the 1. 6 plus 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. Ooh, a whole number. So I have 9, and then I can drop in the plus and the negative 7.8. I have 9, I owe 7.8, so I'm going to subtract these to figure out what I still have. I guess I could keep that decimal there. So 9.0 minus 7.8, borrow, we need 2. 10 minus 8 is 2. 8 minus 7 is 1. I have more than I owe, which makes it a positive 1.2. Okay, bye.